Afternoon, everyone. It's good that you're joining back with us this afternoon. Philip Snow is going to be giving us a live drawing workshop on drawing flowers. So I will hand straight over to him now.
Good afternoon. Good to see you all again. Could you make me main screen, please, Darren? I'm going to, as I have before, show you a little brief thing on just a few of the flowers I've drawn for various things over the last few years, and then we'll be doing a live workshop. So without more ado, I will share the screen. And is that full screen for you all? Okay, flowers. Flowers, I'm sure we all know a lot about flowers. They're one of the most common and yet underrated parts of our creation. They're absolutely incredible the way they convert sunshine and H2O and give out oxygen and take in CO2, etc. And they're beautiful at the same time. So there we have a lot of the aspects of creation all in one. Incredible utility with great beauty, and that's such a characteristic of our Lord's creation. This is a little illustration I did for a book called Tall Tales from an Estuary about the wildlife around here. These are just a few of the flowers and a couple of the insects, of course, which are so important for helping to pollinize the flowers themselves. On the left there is a wild pansy or a June pansy. It's often called the tricolour, not the French flag, because it can be yellow or purple or blue or any combination thereof. And these grow in huge carpets across the dunes. And there are other varieties that you get in the hedgerows as well, also called violets, of course. And in the middle is a June helleborine. It's not that beautiful unless you really look closely at it, because the individual florets like this in the middle here, this is the individual flower off a broadleaf helleborine, which is another version of that June. These are orchids, of course, and they themselves, orchids, are absolutely incredible, like everything else in God's creation. This is a common blue butterfly and a spot burnet moth, which are just two of the many insects associated with our wildflowers. Of course, you get lots of these clovers, pink and white clovers, and yellow birdfoot trefoil in huge carpets in the spring and the summer, especially on sand dunes and what remaining wildflower meadows we have left. Now, these one of the characteristics of the workshop in a minute will be the fact that we've got very few wildflowers out at this time of year for drawing. So a lot of the ones we'll be drawing will be foreigners like these. And this is the huge irony about this is that I drew and painted this page of flowers in southern Spain in my friend's back garden. It turns out that not a single one of them, apart from the aloe, actually came from Spain. But the incredible shapes that you see in flowers, I mean, they have an almost infinite variety of shapes, which are absolutely incredible. And each one is unique, like feathers and eyes and fingernails. Every aspect of every flower is unique. Back to Britain here, these are cuckoo flowers with a orange tip butterfly, characteristic of spring here, at least in North Wales. And these were done for some kind of wildlife trust poster, if I remember it correctly. These are virtually all done on A4 paper, by the way, those of you who are interested in the technical aspect of all this. whether they're drawn from life or in the studio. Of course, flowers tell the most incredible stories about creation. Now, this is a type of bucket orchid. And when Darwin, Charles Darwin, wrote a certain book you might have heard of, called On the Origin of the Species, or that actually, no, it's called The Origin of Species. And it told you nothing about the origin of species. But when he heard about bucket orchids, he thought his correspondent, who might have been Wallace from Southeast Asia, was lying. They're so utterly incredible because these entice flies and insects in to this central chamber with very aromatic liquids, nectars, and they have especially slippery sides to the top of the orchid here, on the top of this so-called bucket. And the insects fall into the chamber with the nectar. But the astonishing is that some of these bucket orchids have an exit at the back here. They have an exit where after the insect has done its job of pollination, it crawls out. It comes out of the back of the orchid only after the orchid has superglued a piece of pollen to its back. That's why Darwin found it so very, very difficult to believe that his random theory of godless evolution could come up with this incredible, absolutely incredible invention whereby a flower superglues a piece of pollen to the back of a fly whilst it's holding it tight. Then it releases it out of the back of the orchid to fly off and go through the whole process with another orchid. I mean, if this is, as Romans 1, I'm sure you're familiar with Romans 1, says there is no excuse for not believing in creation and therefore a creator. No excuse at all. Look at these orchids. Look at these incredible orchids. What do you see there? A flying dinosaur, a pterosaur, a bird, a hummingbird? What? I mean, this is just incredible, absolutely incredible. You want to look up, when you've got the spare time, some of the huge variety of orchids in the world, and they are absolutely mind-blowing that flowers should look like this. And of course, if anything gives a lie to evolution, these are special creations in each one. I mean, there's a hummingbird that spreads out its throat like this, that look like fingers or bat's wings or whatever. There's a hummingbird that flies and looks like a flying orchid. So here we've got an orchid that looks like a flying hummingbird. It's incredible. Creation is absolutely incredible. Now, this is one of the funniest books I've ever read because one of the reasons I came to know the Lord was because I heard an evolutionist on the TV say that the fact that bee orchids and bees have come to look like each other is called convergent evolution. In other words, as far as they're concerned, millions and billions of genetic mistakes, chemical mistakes, have made bees look like orchids and orchids look like bees. Of course, mistakes don't make anything look like anything else except a mess, you know. And yet Steve Jones, Professor Steve Jones, is a professor. In one way, he's a highly intelligent man, but in another way, of course, he's a complete, well, you can put your own word in there. But it was this revelation from an evolutionist. And he said on the TV, if you can believe that's happened by accident, you can believe anything. And that's what really pushed me to find out about my creator. So here's a very common, well, a very common orchid up here, common spotted orchid, and the bees that help with the pollination. And of course, moths and butterflies, they're all involved. And bats, one of the most important pollinators in the world of flowers are bats, as in lots of orchards in Southeast Asia, absolutely rely on bats. But to imagine that these things have come to resemble each other by endless chemical mistakes is just a fantasy. It's godless fantasy. It's an insult to our creator, in fact. But these are not flowers in Israel. These are flowers in a garden, a typical pond here in North Wales, flag iris, and oh, I've forgotten what this one's called. Shame on me. marsh marigold, and the meadow sweet. These are just a few of the flowers that grow around water here. But of course, the Bible says that Israel will bloom. And the fact that Israel is now full of market gardens is it's talking about the final Israel of Jew and Gentile together in the new heavens and the new earth, where everything will bloom and there will be no more serpents. Because the serpent was there with the first lie in the garden, and the serpent is there now with the last lie in the garden before he's completely defeated. And these illustrations, in fact, were not done for anything remotely to do with the Bible, but for secular wildlife societies, posters, and that sort of thing. These are cotton grass here, and bog asphodel. Unfortunately, we give our flowers some very inelegant names, but Satan the serpent, the great red dragon, will be sent to nothing, and we will have a most beautiful new heavens and a new earth. So that's enough of that. I'm now going to switch cameras and start to do some drawing. Right. Now you might remember we did a workshop back in the summer, and I drew some things like this, and you were drawing along. So we're now going to draw some more flowers. As I said, there are very few wildflowers out at this time. So they're largely going to be garden flowers. But we're going to begin with a flower which many of you will be familiar with, called a cowslip. Now these have been quite rare. I'm going to use a photograph for this because there are no cowslips out at the moment, of course. They used to be quite rare in Britain, but a lot of highways departments have been planting them alongside motorways and major roads, so you might have seen them. But this is the sort of plant to draw which gives you a lot of opportunity to do these individually. I'm going to start up here. I'll put my glasses on. And once again, just remind you that I'm going to draw quite strongly so that it shows up on the camera. You don't have to draw as strongly as I do, because the lines I draw underneath can be either painted out later on or drawn over. But if we start with a stem, better put that on the camera. Just a stem about so long. You see that I've drawn that's just about 3 inches long, and that's the tricky bit, is to do it as narrow as possible. And I'm sorry it keeps going out of focus. I still haven't solved that problem. Now at the top, we're basically, I'm going to draw an overall shape, which is actually like the shape of a flower, another type of flower. So it kind of looks a bit like a tulip, but within here, there are going to be lots of individual little florets. So here we're going to have 1, 2, 3. We're going to have about 4 different flowerets. Now they each have their little stem, and so that's very fine indeed. Don't worry if you can't draw one as fine as that. But it has these the green part, and then the little flowers. If you look at these, you'll see that they actually have like a lot of flowers. They actually have 5 petals, although you're usually going to see 3, because the other 2 are behind. So coming out of here, we're going to have 3 petals, and the main one and they have this little indent on the edge of the petal. And so that this is going to be side on. So it's going to look like that. I'll just strengthen that. So you're basically going to be drawing on a cowslip or an oxlip. There's a rarer oxlip as well. There's usually about half a dozen at least in this collection up here of florets. So some are going to be behind the others. So we'll do the ones that are in front first of all. There's a very fine little stemlet. I've forgotten all the official names of the parts of the flower, which is disgraceful. And then we've got, I think this is called the calyx, but my memory is not good nowadays. That's the pale, the very, very pale green bit. And again, these, we're going to have 3 petals that are visible here, but they might be curled up together. They might not be as open as this one. And so you've got the main one visible and the others behind, as it were, like that. So each one is going to be slightly different. And then this one at the back, this one is actually going away from you, as it were. It's behind the others, but it's exactly the same variation on that shape, on the pale green shape there. And this one is looking at it from behind, but it's again, it's going to have the same number of petals visible, main one in the middle, and then hidden away. So in fact, this stem, of course, is going to be quite a bit longer in reality. And actually, because of the shape, I've actually made it a little bit too thin. I'm going to make that thicker. Don't worry about the line in the middle. Just rub that out. It's not always easy to gauge the scale of things when I'm drawing and looking at the screen. By the way, that I cracked my hand in the gate. It's not toxic. So behind here, we're going to have just a bit showing. And so you see how it's gradually being built up behind. And then up at the top, there'll be another one sticking out like that. Again, with one main petal in the middle. So the fact is, of course, you won't be drawing this wrong if yours looks different to that. Most of them are going to have about 6 of these florets on them. Some of them, I'm looking at, there's actually 7. 7 is fairly common. So we just put another one in the middle there and have that one sticking out a bit further. See that? Just to give it put a couple of lines in there to suggest what's happening. So I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 7 there to make it more even. I'll put a little bit sticking out there. Now, of course, I'm not going to be drawing. I'm not going to be colouring these, but I will just do a couple in yellow here using yellow pencils, just to show you the basic colours. Pale yellow there, it's going to actually be green. And the very pale, this is actually very, very pale green. Might not even show up on the camera. This is a greeny yellow. I say I'm doing it brighter than it is in reality. So it shows up on this camera. That's a very crude approximation of a cowslip. So that's our first flower. Now the second one will be more obvious. This is one of the many mallows that grow here on the coast. We have tree mallows. This is quite huge, as you can see from my hand. This is a domesticated form of tree mallow, but we have them on the coast here, growing in large numbers. But this, if we look at these flowers, we can see that once again we've got 5 petals. But look at the individual shapes. You see these are heart. If you imagine a heart shape with a bit taken out of it, it's a broken 5 broken hearts on a mallow. So basically we want to draw a sort of 5 squared circle, as it were. One, two, three, four, 5. All right. Basically, that's just a sort of 5 squared circle, and we need to put this little bit in the middle. Now we're looking at it straight on. This is actually this sticks out quite a bit with the anthers and stamens on it. But you want 5, you want roughly sort of 5 triangles to begin with. So you've got something like a windmill shape, well, at least a Mediterranean windmill shape. So all of these are now, we want to convert them into heart shapes. So we're going to come in fine here and bellow out like that. And then we need to bring in that's a bit more heart shaped than it is in actuality. I say there are a huge variety of mallows. This one is a slightly domesticated one. But if we come out and then to begin with, do the 5 curving lines like so. Of course, in some, the petals can be tighter together. They do tend to touch just about. And then we need to go around and add the hearty bit. And so this is slightly more heart-shaped than it is in reality. But in common with a lot of flowers, they have these veins. The veins spread out like so, and then they split at the ends like river systems, like veins, like the so these are quite pale. They're going out like that. And the splitting at the end, as on the butterfly's wing as well. And they will split and fine, finer and finer. And that, I'm not going to, I'll just do the tiny little anthers and stamens and what have you in the middle. You see how pattern-like these become when we simplify them into patterns. Because in reality, no doubt, if you look very, very close at the ends of these, you see them fade out to nothing and divide and divide and divide, like veins, etc. So this is also, I'm not going to attempt to color this one because it's a beautiful pinky purple. I'll just have a go on here to see what this comes out like. That's not too bad. And of course, it's a lot richer than this, and it's difficult to show color over the web. Digitally, it's going to be enhanced, made stronger. I'll try doing some of the veins because the veins are actually in this purpley pink. There's actually showing up quite well. That's not too bad color-wise. Have to paint it really to get a stronger color. These are solid graphite pencils of different colors. So that's not too bad. That one back in the. Right. Now we're going to do something a bit more exotic. Now, you probably recognize these beauties. These are fuchsia. Again, they're not British, but they are widespread in many gardens throughout Britain, I should imagine. These are here in North Wales. And they look like the most beautiful little hanging lanterns. There's another not dissimilar plant called the Chinese lanterns, I think. You see, we're talking about basically, once again, we've got 5 outer petals hanging down, and then this incredible center to the flower, and the anthers and stamens. And they are, again, they're coming off the central stem. So we do there's no need to do much of the stem. And I will do the end because it goes up to nothing. And then you get the little developing ones with little leaves. And the leaves get larger as they come down. And by the time we've got to this leaf and that leaf, you have the little unopened flowers here hanging from that leaf, from the same base of the leaf. So that's beautiful little spear shape. of the unopened flower. And likewise here, in the same base, slightly bigger one. So the greeny red bit. And this one is about to open. You can just see the lines in it there. And then by the time we come down here to another longer leaf, there is a flower already opened. So it's going to look like this one. And so this is going to split into its 5 petals and open up. And it's fairly the greeny bit, and then the bulbous part. And then we're basically, I'm just doing these pale to begin with. I'm just going to open the curtains a little here. We've got a problem with the light. The light is very strong here. So you can see the weave of the paper. The sun has come out, so I've opened the curtains. As I say, we're going to have 1, 2, we're going to have 3 petals showing, and they're going to be larger versions of this. So the main one is coming out towards us, like so. This is it's a bit larger than life. And the side ones are going to be showing at that they're looking at them side on. So they're like this. And then you can see the basic shape. Now inside, there is yet another flower shape. Absolutely beautiful flower shape in the form. The petals are not open inside, and they're a deeper color. But coming out of the center bit, the long anthers and stamens with one long central one, like so. And we put that one, and it's coming down to about here. These are very, very fine, very, very thin, each with their own little knob on the end. It's a bit larger than life, but I'm exaggerating these so they stand out. And there are another about 7 or 8 shorter ones coming down. We'll just do those in lines. I won't bother trying to put weight on them. Not as long as the central one. They have the little blobs on the end, or slightly different lengths. And that's on this, because this is inside the plant. It's in shadow anyway. And of course, these flowers generally have a central vein, and they don't actually have a lot of veining on them. And so I think that one will, and of course this will be shaded on this side with the light coming in this way. Now I'm not going to try emulating this color. I'm sure many of you will have fuchsias in your garden. So if you wanted to work on this further later on, color them yourself. Now, another plant fairly common in gardens at this time of the year is the nerim. It's kind of lily, really lovely flower. This is life size. You can see that these have yet to open here. And that one has already died off. So I'm going to do a central stem here up to the top flower, more or less straight, slightly curving, and right at the very top. Oh dear, I'm just going to close that curtain a bit. Yeah, right at the top here is, oh, this is, I'm going to have to close that curtain. Very difficult to get the balance right. Bit like life, isn't it? Mm. Anyway, so these here have yet to open. There's a few spear-like flowers up there, and do that very fine stem. And off to the side there is one that is just about to open. So all that is the pink sphere, pink sphere, spear. Come on. And then half a centimeter below that, one of the main flowers that's already opened. Oh, there's its stem. So now these actually have 6 petals. So most flowers, many flowers have 5, but some do have 6. So what we've got to do is suggest a ball, a general flower shape that gone over that one. There's a general flower shape that will encompass the 2 at the back. You're not going to see that the main ones quite slender petals, quite spear-like. And then that's a bit too thick down the bottom there. So that's 4 of them, but you can suggest the other 2 behind. You've got an endless combination when you're looking at these things. And just so these are the pink bits, these are the green bits, that one is pink as well. Just try a little pink in there just to suggest the difference between the flowers and the greenery. And then when we've got one coming off further down, remember how I showed you last time, they come off the stem like a spiral. They actually spiral up around the stem. They don't come off opposite each other. There's a gap between them, so there'll be another one down here. One left, right, etc. So this one shows a bit stronger the overall shape, because this goes from green to pink as you go up. And this one is open wider, and we'll put this one behind. So these are open wider. They are like, we've got a shape like that, wider open than this one, and this one hasn't opened at all. Again, we'll do the central one first, then the two side ones, and rub that out. That one's going behind that one. So we've got another three to show. So there's one behind there. And we want to maintain that overall shape. Another one out there. And actually another one, a sixth one, going into that central part there. Make that neater. Oh. And then this one down here is actually already flowered and shriveled. So we could see the progression going up the plant from not open, partially opened, semi-open, fully open. Put that one a bit further out so it suggests that it's more open. It's going slender there. So these things, that's a very poor approximation of these beautiful Nerin type lily. Not quite sure where that comes from. Now, we have something again that will be familiar to most of you, I think. Nasturtium. You know these were edible as well, as long as you haven't put agri-chemicals on them. The leaves and flowers are edible. Very tasty. All right. I'm going to move this one up. Now we're going to draw this one side on. Then look at it from the front. There you've got the standard 5 petals. And of course you've got this lovely trumpet. And as you probably know, the moths and butterflies have different length tongues and different shaped heads for getting into these plants and pollinating them, even though they are there's a huge variety. So this is very much, this reminds you, of course, from the side of a daffodil as well, a fairly standard shape for flower. Right, where should we put it? Over here. So we're basically talking about, it's like almost like an axe shape. Or some kind of trumpet shape. So we do that sort of axe shape to begin with, and then have the stem coming down. But on the back, you see we have this special adaptation. So that's kind of rounded at the back with this peculiar spike. And we'll round this off a bit more. And round that off, make that a bit bigger. will also make the general shape a little bigger. I'll just rub that line out. So once again, we need to, this needs to be a little bit wider to hold that up. And now once again, we've got 5 of these around the outside, underpinning the whole flower. And they're a darker orange, sorry, different orange, more yellowy orange. Now, once again, we've got to get these 5 petals in. If we look here, they're all overlapping. They're actually going round like tiles, overlapping each other. But so this one, we're doing the outside of the petals now. These are quite elegant. There's a quite elegant curve like that. Now that petal is going to go back, and this petal is going to overlap it. And that petal is going to overlap that one. So we'll try and put in a general shape of the middle petal, which is actually coming towards you, bending over and coming towards you, something like that. So we're coming out. And this is the end of the petal coming over towards us. And it's also, well, then the outer petal is going up and bending away like that. And also bending over towards us, and then bending away, bending that way, bending this way, bending that way, coming out. So the veins in this are going to go round and over, as it were. The veins in that are going out and hanging over. Now, just to confuse things, you can actually see a back of the 5th petal out there from behind. And this one, of course, this one needs to come over and join here. We'll just have that one as the underside. So the veins are doing that. The veins are doing that. These veins are doing that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, but there's a 5th petal showing here. So we need to try and include that. And that will be vaguely here. So that's coming out from the back. And just to complicate things, this petal actually bends over. This is the top, this is the underside. And we'll get some orange and do the undersides of the petals. Again, this orange cannot match the brilliant orange of the nasturtium, but at least it shows you which is the underside of the petal, and the other bits will be paler in the light because they are out in the light. And if the sun wasn't going inside, in and out, outside my window here, it would be a lot easier to show this. I'll just darken those. So these are the undersides. And these are where they are curling over. And this bit is a slightly different orange, much more yellowy orange. I'll try and emulate that much more. And this is if you probably got these in your garden, then you could play with them later on. Again. So we end up with a rather heavy looking flower. So that's the disadvantage of this way of presenting, because I have to draw quite heavily for it to stand out. Right. I reckon we've probably just got time for one final flower. Whoops. He says looking for his well, I think I'll draw a daffodil from a photograph. Of course, I know daffodils out at the moment, but we know basically we're talking about a golden trumpet. Like so. I'll just tip it up, try and get the best light on it. And a pale now we know we've got this little frill around the outside. The little frill all the way around. And of course that is bending inwards. So this is the interior of the trumpet. Bending over. And the daffodil is another one of those with 6 petals. So they are not quite as long as the trumpet. And from the side, of course, they look. Oh, this is terrible. Sorry, I'm going to have to fiddle with the curtains again. Oh, so it actually looks better with the curtains closed because of the light here. Anyway, there we are. There's a very crude looking daffodil. And we've got the veins. I was drawing the veins to follow the contours of the flowers, as it were. Then of course there's another 5, the 5 petals, one at the back there. And try and suggest getting lighter up there. So that will be in shade at the back. This will be in shade. And this will be in shade. Smudging with my finger to show the shade where the shadows are falling. A little bit here. The light is coming this way. This is in shade down here. So I'm smudging that with my finger to try and show the overall shape. Right. Oh, I've just realised it's only 5 to 2, so I've got to about another 15 minutes, William.
I'll probably do another flower.
Another flower, right?
Yeah.
This one, unfortunately, is disappearing. Right. Now here's one you will see if you live anywhere near limestone. This is valerian, a great heart drug. Administered carefully, by the way. And this typically grows on limestone walls and quarries. Now the thing is, from a distance, this is going to look like bundles. Going to look like bundles of flowers together. Whereas individually, you can see what they look like individually. These great big bundles of flowers are actually like that. But when we see them from a distance, so we'll bring in the stem as usual. Now within this bundle, we're going to have all these little branches. So within the bundle, there'll typically be about 6 branches within the main bundle of pink flowers. You occasionally get white ones, white valerian, which, like everything else, will be a mutation, a lack of pigment. But on the end of these little stems and stemlets, they will then go into, yet again, divided. These are all like rivers and veins. They divide and subdivide and subdivide. And then they end up with these little flowers on the end, tiny. I'll draw them in close up in a minute. This is just to show you that this bundle is made up of these tiny little branching. So this whole bundle looks like almost like a solid pink or scarlet mass, but in fact, they're made up individually like this. So if we look at one, excuse me, we look at one of these stems close up, that goes there, divides again. And little leaves on here as well. Divides. And then on this division here, there are these beautiful little trumpets. These are thicker. I'm drawing them thicker than they actually are because with these little, and once again, we've got these 5 little flowers, petals, sorry, on the end, sticking out, with the anthers and stamens sticking out of those. So these are little bundles like this that are making up this bigger bundle, as in all. These are called fractal patterns because they're fractions of the whole, and each one individually, like the veins on a leaf, or they subdivide and subdivide. Of course, at an atomic level, at a microscopic level, these patterns just get more and more and more. But from a distance, you're just seeing a pink mass, like so, in these bundles of valerian growing off these limestone walls and limestone quarries. Yet each one individually at that level, at that size, are these, whoop, I'm falling off, are these beautiful little trumpets. So you see how common trumpets shapes are within creation. And again, that's related to the insect's ability to, the different sized tongs, proboscis, to take the nectar out and spread them around. Or the bats are one of the really, really important pollinators as well. So here, this general shape will subdivide and make all of these general pink flower heads of valerian. Like everything else, absolute wonders of creation, of design. These things are also, they maximize surface area. So like our lungs, I think I'm correct in saying that our lungs cover the area of about a tennis court. You've got the maximum amount in contact to bring in oxygen and exhale CO2. So these plants can take in the CO2. So Prince Charles isn't quite mad when he talks to his plants because he's breathing CO2 on them. That's why they respond, not because of the flower fairies, Prince Charles, but because of the CO2 you're breathing on them, and they're giving you oxygen. So the system that this world lives on, runs on, is a masterpiece of design, as we would expect. So that's valerian. So that's very common on limestone walls. It was a nasturtium, and the nerin. And I didn't put daffodil, fuchsia, and down here we had mallow. By the way, certain mallow flowers make one of the best throat medicines you can have. Certain mallow, and not all of them, I think. You have to be very careful when you eat plants and fungi, as I've mentioned before, because the cowslip down here, upside down at the moment. So there's a few common flowers you can find in your garden, and I hope that you've enjoyed drawing a few of them. And I'll hand you back to William now, and I'll stop.
Thank you, Philip.
Right.
And I don't know whether anybody would like to share their pictures.
Yes, please.
If so, then
Right.
please do turn on your cameras. That's what I was going to say. Or put a message in the chat, or
Right. The Lucases produce lots of good stuff.
Yeah, we have. Eve, do you want to do yours first?
Oh, you have a brush as well. Oh, very nice. Oh, yes, yes. Like your butterflies.
Thanks.
and bees. Very good.
I've got
Right. Oh, back a little bit, yeah. Oh, a cowslip. I like the cowslips. And the Nerean, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
fuchsia, sorry. Fuchsia, yes. And the Brent geese. Was that from this morning?
that was this morning, yeah.
Did you actually draw that this morning while the program was on? Or?
I did, yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. Do you see Brent geese where you are?
Not really where we are, but we went
Oh.
to an estuary where we saw
Yeah.
quite a lot, so
They're actually one of the birds that are increasing in Britain. We had hardly any Brent geese on Anglesey until the last 10, 20 years, and we now get hundreds and hundreds coming down from the north. You know. Can I ask you why you have a brush handle?
oh no, this is just a stick I found and carved into like a staff walking stick.
Oh, I see, I see. It's not for keeping the family in order.
Well, that as well.
Yes, yes. Very nice. Very nice stuff, yes. Has anybody else drawn any? Silence. Sorry?
I don't think anybody spoke. I don't think.
Ah, right, right. I'm hearing voices already. Right?
Blows.
Clothes. Right. Very nice. Oh, yeah. Are those painted or crayons? Are they?
You're
Very nice.
muted.
Ah, right. The blows are muted. There we are. Are they painted or crayons?
Pencil.
Sorry?
They're done with pencils.
Very nice. Yes. Ah. The Blows family have blown away. Right. Yeah, to the Lewises and everyone. We might try drawing this week. Well, I'm sure you've got most people will have some flowers in the garden, won't they? And of course, they're a lot easier than birds because they don't fly away while you're, or swim away whilst you're drawing them.
Yeah, that is useful.
Right.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Philip. And
Right.
thank you to everybody for coming today. And tomorrow morning at 9:30, Pastor Caetano de Souza will be taking our devotional for tomorrow. And then I will give a couple of lectures in the morning. And then Philip will be back tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, I think. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
What are you
Drawing
doing?
birds. Drawing
That's it.
different aspects of birds. Wings, heads, flights, everything.
So make sure you don't miss out on anything tomorrow. We
Thank you.
look forward to seeing you then tomorrow, and we'll say goodbye for today.
Goodbye. God bless all.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye-bye.
to everyone.
Bye-bye.